You want the whiteboard?
Mm-hmm. That's okay. Just send it.
Just check. Trying to help. Check YouTube and see if anyone's on here. Ask if anyone's here.
If anyone's here, if you could just let us know in the chat room. Thank you. Did you put us on live stream so it's on
I'm
the...
working on it. It's good.
Okay, so if anyone's here, we're going to start at 2 o'clock, but I just would like to know we're taking attendance. If you could just let us know you're here in the chat room, that would be awesome. Okay, that list there. But look at.
Well, there's no end yet.
I know.
You still got 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I anticipate we'll probably get some calls, so I'll try to deal with that if anyone does.
So if anyone's is on the site, as soon as you are, if you can just let us know in the chat room so we can sort of take attendance. So if anybody's here, we're just trying to housekeeping things, get everybody on deck. So just let us know in the chat room that you're here. And out of your box, you're going to need your big blue book, the packet that says the redesigned SAT and the packet that says Heart of Algebra 1. So if anybody's here, please let us know in the chat room. I'm sorry I keep repeating myself. We're going to actually start at 2 o'clock. But if you're here, just let me know so we can sort of grab it, take an attendance. And out of your box, the list is...
Yeah.
Out of your box, you're going to need your blue book. We will do that. We will use that during every class in tandem with the packets. So this is a program to get ready for the March 13th SAT. Hopefully many will be vaccinated by then, but they have definitely had SATs already. So if you're out there, please just let us know in the chat room so we can sort of know who's here. We're going to technically begin around 2, but hopefully we made it easy for you. You just go to our website, click on the live stream, and you should be in. And we just need you to grab your blue book, the redesigned SAT packet. We tried to put them in synchronous order from the top down, and the Heart of Algebra 1. This is mostly an orientation lesson, but we are going to give you some strategies and do our first math packet today. So this is an overview of what you need to know for the test. So if anybody's here, just let us know in the chat room so we can sort of keep an account of who's here and who might be having trouble. So call out to anybody out there. If you've logged on to our account, I'm Mrs. Hessler, and we will be here every Sunday afternoon from 2 to 5. There'll be a little bit of homework, not much. When you take a practice test, we're going to ask you to go over the answers. So, oh, good. So,
I'll check it out.
Vassie's here.
Okay.
Nice to see you, Vassie. Good. So thank you for letting us know. I'll be probably repeating myself until we get everybody on board here. So we're going to work till about 5 o'clock today. We're going to work about an hour and a half and then take a 10-minute break. So this is our 4th time doing a online program because of the pandemic. And we've had the same success that we had in person. There's a couple of pluses. You could just be, hi, Madeline, glad you're here, sweetheart. So we're going to technically start at 2 o'clock, but we wanted to give everybody time. So Madeline and Vassie, what you're going to need is your blue book out of the box, the redesigned SAT, the Heart of Algebra 1, and we'll just sort of wait for everybody else. But this is our 4th time doing this online in a pandemic. So if you're here, just please let us know in the chat room so we can account for you. Technically, we're not supposed to start until 2. Lauren, great. Great, Lauren. Glad you're on board with us. I'm so glad. So anyway, out of your box, we just need the blue book, the redesigned SAT, and the Heart of Algebra 1 packet. And we're just waiting for everybody to sort of get in, see if anybody has problems. We tried to make it very easy. All you'll have to do is just go on our website and hit the live stream. As I mentioned just now, this is our 4th time of doing this online because of the pandemic. We're getting ready for the March 13th SAT. So we've had great success with this before. One of the students, his brother, got a perfect 800 score in math and I think it was a 780 in reading. So we're just waiting for everybody so we can officially start once everybody gets on board. And so the blue book we use every class. This is the College Board book, so it gives us a great reference to the actual material that's on board. So once the test went to the Common Core in 2016, it became very easy to do the math to get an 800 score because they don't have those high aptitudinal math questions anymore. It's all Common Core, so you're going to see every problem you see here with us. So we're going to do an hour and a half. Anybody else here, please let us know. We're trying to scramble to take attendance. So if you could let us know in the chat room that you're here, we can cross you off so we won't have to make calls or anything. And the chat room is going to be the way that you can ask us questions and give us responses. Oh, good. Lena's here. Thank you, sweetheart. So, oh, and Weston's here. That's great. And so the chat room, oh, good. So we have Kanan Barbine and Sam Falbo.
Okay.
Awesome. So people are coming in. We'll just wait a couple more minutes. So we want everybody to get on board. We're going to do an hour and a half. But the good news about doing it online, I know it's not a perfect world, but you can be in your comfortable clothes. You don't have to drive to a live class. And if we save the videos. So if you want to look at a video, we save them on our site so you can look at it again if you need to. So what you'll need for the people that just arrived is your blue book out of the box, the redesigned SAT, which is our orientation packet, and eventually we'll be doing, oh, good, Sarah's here. That's another one. Thank you, sweetheart, for letting us know. Out of your, oh, and Emma's here. That's great. So out of your box, you're going to need the blue book, the redesigned SAT, and Lindsay's here. That's awesome. In the heart of Algebra 1. So the chat room is how we interact. So I'll be asking you for responses. Don't be shy. Oh, John Kane, great job. And Kevin Coyne, maybe? Yes, Kevin Coyne is here. Okay, great. So Sophia's here. Mr. Conley's here. I think his name is John. Asa Silver's here. Whoa, great. Thank you. So out of your box, maybe you had a chance to open it. I'd like you to take out your blue book, the redesigned SAT packet, the Heart of Algebra 1 packet, and in the cover of your blue book, if you would write down, this is my email address. Just open up the cover and put this there. I'm on it all day long, so I can respond to any questions you have. So it'll be Chris Hessler at eatonprep.com. Then the College Board website, which many of you know. If you're there, just let us know so we can try to keep a handle on the people that are here. And we're going to be here every Sunday, so it's not a deep invasion in your life. But the March 13th SAT is the one we're shooting for. And so every question, if somebody has just joined us, please let us know, because we're trying to keep a register of everybody that's here. It's a little after 2, so I'm hoping we're trying to keep tabs on everybody. So, can you want to scroll down, Jim?
It's down all the way. I'm
okay.
Trying to
yeah.
Down. Maybe just tell them what happens if the stream has an interruption.
Okay, if there's ever an interruption, and there was, oh, Colin, great. If there's ever an interruption in our stream, either on your end or our end, just come back in about 5 minutes, and we'll be here. So we had a windstorm in our last, that was the only hiccup we had in our last class, and the hiccup, we fixed it in about 5 minutes. People went off, so it's not storming here in Pittsburgh, but So anyway, in the cover of your blue book, I'd like you to write my email. That'll be your way to contact me. And then the College Board website. We're getting ready for the March 13th SAT, and who knows, we might all be vaccinated by then, but they have been having SATs. So everybody got that information down? You want to see? You don't want to scroll down?
It's down.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm just going to go over a general thing in case anybody else is coming on. So if anybody has been here, is joined us, just tell us in the chat room. And so you probably know on each SAT, you'll get a score between 200 and 800. 500 is average, and that will get you into college, obviously, but that's getting half the questions right. We would like you to get many more right. So every question, this is just some basic information, every question is 10 points. So if you have a 500 math, say, and you want to get a 600 math, that's only 10 questions. And you'll see the math. Oh, Kathleen, thank you for letting us know you're here, sweetheart. So what you need to get out is your blue book and the redesigned SAT overview. I realize this is the first class and it's taking, we have a little confusion getting on board. So the math goes from easy to hard, obviously. So the first 10 questions or so, there's not going to be any traps. But as you get into the hard zone, you'll hear the Jaws music, and there'll be shark waters, and you'll see. And what we usually do with our math lessons is you can see. Hopefully, you have the schedule. It's pretty easy. It's just Sunday afternoons from now until the March 13th SAT. You don't have to register for the March test just yet, but you can do that. Okay, a couple other things I want to go over. With the reading, and anybody else that's here, just let us know. We're trying to take tabs. I know I'm repeating myself, but anyway, the good news about doing it online is we've had the same success rate as we did when we had a live class. And the reading, on the reading section, 1/3 of it is grammar rules. And so you'll see in our schedule that we're going to be doing 4 classes on grammar and learn the 20 rules that are there. The other thing about the math is there's 8 formulas they do not give you. And you're like, what? What's with this? But that's because they're playing hard.
Yeah, they're evil.
They're evil, I guess, diabolical. Okay, so we're going to give you those 8 formulas, and you can see each class we're start from the easy to go to the hard. The chat room is where you'll let us know that you're there, and we'll be asking for responses. Also, we save these videos so you can go back on our website and rewatch it if you need to. Okay, so a lot of colleges do something called SuperScore. Now, I realized last year a number of colleges didn't require an SAT, but trust me, if they have 2 simultaneous students with straight A's, they're going to go to the SAT score as the determiner. So when you see SuperScore on a college application, that means they're taking the best math and the best reading from either test. And so the goal is that with the March 13th test, hopefully you'll hit it out of the park and you'll be done. But also, if not, there's a May test, so maybe you hit the math out of the park and you want to do another one later, and so you can take the May test. They're getting very good at grading these, like 2 or 3 weeks and you have your score. Okay, so that's just an overview, a little bit more. The essay is optional. Jimmy's going to be talking about the essay later. I want to mention another thing. If you're, we're getting ready for the March test, but there will be one in May. You can see your scores before you send them to colleges. So what we sort of recommend is that you look at your scores, and then you don't have to put the colleges down initially. In other words, what I'm saying is, you can see your scores before. You couldn't do that a while ago. Okay, the subject tests, if you're going to an elite school, you'll be signing up for the subject tests. And there's 18 of these. Most schools don't require them, but like Ivy League schools and anything like that might. And so what we suggest you do is, you can't take the test the same day, thank goodness, but you would just go to Barnes & Noble and just look at the subject tests and see if you would want to do. Math level 1 is just like the SAT pretty much. You could also take Spanish or whatever you excel in. If you're taking, physics now, you might want to take the subject test. But I suggest you sort of look at that one.
Math level 2?
Yeah, math level 2 requires a little more work. Okay, so I'm here. I'm Mrs. Hessler, and my son is here. So I've been doing this for over 25 years. I know I don't look a day over whatever. But anyway, if anybody else has just joined us, please let us know. My son James is teaching the English. He graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Penn State in English. And so what I'd like to do now is go to the packet that you have that looks like this. So if you could grab that packet, and anybody else that has joined us, let's let us know. Okay, so the SAT is not an intelligence test. It's a test of reading, writing, and math skills you've had in school. So obviously preparation can significantly improve your score. So we average a 100-point increase in math and about a 60 to 70 increase in reading. Some students have done way better than that, obviously. So the colleges, like I mentioned before, they don't know what an SAT or what an English grade is from Mount Lebanon compared to an English grade from another school. And so this is how they decide who they want to admit. Also, what I want to say is this is very important, scholarships are predicated on SAT scores. For example, most Catholic colleges, if you get a 1200, you get $2,000 a year. My son, who's an art teacher, who some of you have had at Mellon Middle School, he got into an the Schreier's Honors College at Penn State and saved his half tuition. And I promised him a car after he graduated, and it was a used car, so this is tax-free income for your parents based on SAT scores. So I know a number of you aren't quite there deciding on a school for sure. Usually you have a reach school. That'll be a school that's a little difficult to get into. A safe school, that's a school you can get into, and then maybe 2 or 3 in the middle. But so when you start to look at colleges, the scholarship money is often based on SAT scores. So the honors colleges, which most public schools have, they require a 1350, and they have sizable scholarships with them. These are public universities. Okay, so that's why we're doing 36 hours. It's not to be brutal, but when you think of it, you spent thousands of hours on your schoolwork and your grade point average, and this is the second thing that colleges look at. And so I know my 4 kids went to Penn State main campus, and so Penn State and Pitt, for those of you who are local to Pittsburgh. The main campuses, just to give you an idea, are looking something between a $1,250 and a $1,350. So that gives you an idea. Okay, so let's turn the page. If anybody has a question, Jim is monitoring the chat room. So the SAT has 5 sections. The essay now is optional, and I'm going to let Jim talk about that. Most schools do not require an essay. Also, on test day, you'll be used to the SAT. There's a reading section, the 65 minutes. There's grammar section, no calculator, and calculator. And then the essay's optional. Often there's an experimental section at the end of the test. So I just want you to be aware of this. You say, I'm paying them and they're experimenting on me. And that's true because they don't know how difficult the question will be. So this one, at the end of the test, just expect this. Just do your best, but realize it's not going to count. I don't want you to just skip it, but realize it's there. And let's move on. Most of you have taken a PSAT. I know they were talking about some PSATs being given on the 11th of January. So this will help for that if you haven't taken it yet. So let's move on to the pacing. There's a time constraint on the SAT. And that's why we give you practice tests. We give you the practice tests. Now, this is the one thing you'll have to do without us, and I'll explain about this in a minute. So you get to know your own time frame. Like math, no calculator is a time crunch for you. But hopefully, after seeing all the problems we do in here, every problem will look familiar. You should probably solve your math problems in about a minute. If a problem takes you longer than that, just skip it and come back to it. And also, you should answer every question. There's no guessing penalty. So if your boyfriend's Carl, put in C's at the end because you have a 1 out of 4 chance of getting it correctly. So we'll talk about the practice test in a minute. Right here, actually. So we're going to be taking 3 actual practice tests from the Blue Book. So in 2016, when this rolled out, we had to write our own test, and it was a little horrific, actually. But now the College Board, you guys are a benefit of this because the College Board has 8 tests already for us in your Blue Book, and you'll be taking 3 of them under time conditions at home. Because I was a teacher for practically 30 years, I just had to comment on this. It doesn't pay to cheat on this test, okay? We've had kids do it because the answers are in the back of each test with the solutions, but that having no integrity doesn't help you at all. So we ask you to take it under realistic time frame when you're rested. I don't want you to take one this week. I want you to wait until we've done next week's class, and then we'll give you the thing about the diagnostic. So every time you come on the schedule, which is on our website, and on the many of you, I mailed you a packets. And so as far as the makeup sessions, they're all online. So another beautiful thing about this is if you go on vacation, you can participate from vacation site. If you have to miss a class, it's all saved online, but we'd like you to be here live to interact with us in the chat room. Speaking of that, if anybody else has come on board, don't be shy. Just let us know you're here. Okay, the math test. So there's one that's no calculator. The other, you can use a calculator. The no calculator are more conceptual in answer. Here are the directions for test day. Okay, which is, I want you to be familiar with. I don't want you to read any directions on test day. So time is money, so you want to go right to question 1. Okay, there's a formula page on every test. Here's what they give you, but remember I said there's 8 formulas they do not give you, like the circle on the coordinate plane, the vertex formula, but we're going to be showing you all of those here. So by March 13th, you're going to be armed and dangerous for your future and scholarship money, we hope. Let's go to the grid-in section. Okay, they're at the end of each math section, and there's some rules here, so we're just going to go briefly through them. So you know you get 4 spaces, and you don't get points for writing up here. You only get points for putting the graphite in the oval. There's a couple of rules. Any fraction needs to be reduced. So you want to reduce all your fractions. They don't say that here, but that's important. Also, if you have 2 1/2, that's your answer, you can put it in as 2.5 or 5/2, but you can't write it as 2 1/2 because the computer now in New Jersey will read that incorrectly. A repeating decimal, you can put, like for example, 2/3, you can write it this way. They will also take 0.666 or 0.667, but you just can't put 0.6. You have to carry any repeating decimal out to the 3rd place. But the beauty of this is you'll have the practice on the practice test, so you'll be ready to go. Okay, so remember, if your answer is negative or you have a radical or imaginary number, you did something wrong, because all of that can be accommodated within the grid is the integers, whole numbers. Most of them will be integers with a couple of fractions. Okay, so the test went way into algebra. There's very little geometry. What we're going to do now is an overview. So this is what you have to know, but we're going to go, and this is all the stuff you have to know. But anyway, we're going to go through all this in the course. We've covered absolutely everything you'll see. And that's the goal, is that in the math part that I'm doing here, you'll have seen every question before. You'll know strategies to work with. And so I want to start with a strategy with question 1. This is our first strategy. So let me mention this. You have a math way of doing things, but what if you can't do the math way? There's always a strategy that you can employ. So if this door doesn't open, you can always use a strategy. My son, that's an art teacher, that part of the brain got gifted, and so he wasn't very good at math, but he learned enough strategies to get into the honors program at Penn State. So let's try a strategy. Our first one is to pick a number. And maybe this is not cheating, it's just another tool in your toolbox to use during the test. So let's look at this first question. It's a word problem. Sometimes those are difficult, but we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna face everything here. And you can pick a number also on difficult algebra questions. The rate for a telephone call between 2 cities is 50 cents for the first 2 minutes and 20 cents for each additional minute or portion thereof. Which of the following functions expresses the cost in dollars of a phone call between these 2 cities that lasts for n minutes? And you might be thinking, oh my goodness, this is way too abstract. So our antidote for that is to pick a number. So let's say our n is 5. I'm going to do this one with you, but we're going to give you some chance to do some later today. And I know it's going to take a little while for you to feel comfortable with this strategy. And maybe some of you are math savants, that's math wizards who can do this abstractly. But if our phone call is 5 minutes, then the first 2 minutes will be 50 cents. Then we'll have 3 minutes left at 20 cents. So our phone call will be $1.10. So which answer choice, if I put 5 in for n, will give me $1.10? So I'm going to let you take a minute to just circle something. This is not what I'm going to ask you for answers for. So hopefully you can see, wow, that's $1. That's not right. But B is correct because 5 times 20 plus 10 cents is $1.10. And so this is a strategy that you can use on word problems and also, and like I said, we're just doing an overview here. So, and I don't know, we have people with all different kinds of math backgrounds. Now this one is pretty difficult. So this one, we're going to use a strategy of sort of flying like an eagle above the problem. So stay with me, because what happens is the College Board does not, you have all had the algebra you need. If you've had Algebra 2, you're good for every question on the SAT. You do not need trigonometry. The only trigonometry is SOHCAHTOA and one identity. That's it. So everything, there's a glass ceiling to this test. They can't ask you logarithms. They can't ask you matrices. So they can ask you something pretty difficult like this. The formula above gives the payment needed to pay a loan of $D at R% annual interest over M months. So look for what we need to get. We need to get the D to stand alone. They always write this. This is their MO. In terms of M, R, and P. So just cross that off. All we want to do is get the D by itself right there. Okay, so let me simplify this a little bit, and if you're struggling, it's okay. I'm a nurturing mom, so I'm not the kind of math teacher that says you have a 78.65 and, you know. So if we had this, what if we had P equals dA all over B? And we had to get the D to stand alone. What I'm also telling you to do is always look at the prompt, because often they will ask for something you might not be sure what they're trying to get. So we want to get D to stand alone. So we would multiply by B, right? Both sides by B, and divide by A. So I tried to make that very simplistic. So here, this whole term up here, they're trying to confuse you. This whole term in the numerator, we're going to call A, and we're going to call this whole nasty term B. So all we need to do is multiply by the B. So we're putting this term up here, and we're dividing by this term down here. And so that will be answer choice C. Okay, this is a difficult question, but like I said, I went to a seminar once and they said your frontal lobes can keep growing until age 25. So what we are is we're your Peloton mentally during the pandemic. So I just want to know if you sort of understand this one before I let you try a book one. So if everybody could tell me I get it or I'm still confused in the chat room. Can you just let me know? I'm confused still. Be honest. This is just a small class. I'm still confused, or I get it. I get why it's C. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to just tell us in the chat room, I'm still confused, or I get it. Because I want to go through it again for anybody that's still confused. Okay, so Lauren gets it, Maddie gets it. It's okay if you don't get it. So a number of people understand it. Thank you for your responses.
Ready for a book one.
Okay. So I'd like you to turn in your book to page 1230, and I'd like you to try number 7. So if I don't take you into the deep water, you're not going to increase your math score. But I don't think everybody understood it quite. But that's okay. I want to try to go to the book one. So I like to do the book questions for the reason that you're actually seeing a College Board test, so your anxiety level is going to go down when you see the actual test. And then also, it gives credibility to our program because you know they can test on this. So we have the advantage that the College Board is the big producer of test booklets. Okay, so I'm not sure totally everybody understood this, but let's look at number 7. And so we have M equals they try to make it look very confusing. And this is what I mean about mainly our job is not to teach you the math.
The denominator.
Oh, yeah. And so you can see in the problem, we're trying to get P. And that in terms of, that's just there to confuse you. So you can just draw a line through the in terms of. Okay, so we want to multiply. Remember, this is our A term up here. This whole thing, I'm going to use a different color. So this whole thing up here, as confusing as it seems, is our A term. This whole thing is our B term. And this is on the no calculator section. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be multiplying by this bottom term and dividing by this top term. So log in an answer, and then if you would tell me what answer you get in the blue book, that would be great with me. Just take a minute. If you're still confused, please tell me, because I took a lot of math classes when I was in my 40s, and I know what it's like to not see something mathematically. Usually everybody gets the verbal, but the math is a little trickier. So who did not come? The coin boy and...
I'll tell you later.
I know this is a pretty difficult one, but my job is to sort of defog the questions. So once you get an answer, don't be shy, just put it in the chat room. You're going to multiply by this B term is going to go up here. And this A term is going to go down here. And then the P will be all by itself. Okay, a number of people are responding correctly. Okay. Anybody else out there who's still confused? I would like you to be honest. And I can always go over this later with you after the class. Okay, so that's going to be a surefire 10 points now that you can do. And that's the goal, that the more you do this, the problems will not be confusing and you'll be racking up time for the harder questions. Okay, we're going to go back to the packet and we're going to go down to this next question. Okay. All right. I don't want you to take a practice test this week. You'll take it the following after next Sunday. Like I said, we have quite a bit of time till next Sunday. Till the March 13th test. And so I don't want you to do the test until we've done next Sunday's class, which is all about lines and systems, which is mostly Algebra 1. But this is a crazy kind of question they ask that there's an easy way to solve it. So are we okay with everything? So it says in the system of equations above, which value of C would result in infinitely many solutions? Now, infinitely many solutions means it's the same line. So this formula or equation is just the same as this one, only this one is traveling incognito with sunglasses. And so what we're trying to do is figure out what did they do to, we don't have to solve, this is the good news. You can't really solve for A and B. And you might not have had these questions exactly in your math class. So what you're going to do here is multiply this by 3, this by 3, and so we have to multiply 48 by 3, and we would get 144. Is that pretty good for everybody? So it's a different kind of question that you might, that's the whole thing. They try to test you a little different than a math teacher might do. So let's go to a book question. I'd like you to go to page 612 and try number 33. Okay, so I'm trying to keep track. Sophia, are you still there? This is Sophia Zundel. I'm asking you, sweetheart, if you're still there. I'm not picking on you. I just haven't seen your name come up Oh, Colin asked, thank you. Why do I multiply by 3? Because it's the same line. Good question. This is the same line as this one. But what they did was, you can see with a 9 to 27, do you see they multiplied that by 3? So they're multiplying 12 by 3 to get 36. Does that make sense, Colin, now? I'm waiting for Colin to respond, but everybody can try 612. Okay, good. And this is a difficult one because we're into a grid-in. And so we have x plus 2y equals 10. And we have 3x plus 6y equals c. And we're out on a limb. They're the same line, so they told us this. So we have to sort of fly like an eagle above the question and see what we would get. And so a lot of people see that the answer is 30 because I'm multiplying this by 3, this by 2 by 3, and so 10 times 3 is 30. So a little strange because you might not see a question like that, but that's sort of why we're doing this overview. So Sophia, are you still there, hon? I'm trying to see who else. Can you look on the list, your beginning list, and see if somebody else? I'm concerned that, okay, we'll keep on going, but I don't want to lose anybody. Okay. Now we're going to the next page, and we'll be covering systems in depth on next Sunday. You might say, well, system questions are easy. That was Algebra 1. And yes, they're easy, but you can sort of see here that they're not that easy. They can put a little twist onto it. Okay, there is a data analysis section, and you might say, we're going to look at some questions. That's graphing, which you've had all through school. This is the list of things, but I'm not so concerned about that as I am trying some questions.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I can't see where it was. Sorry. I might have closed it. Let me put it up. I got it. I think I just closed it on accident.
1 second. So the good news is that you don't have to know you don't have to have statistics in high school, but there is a section on the test. You don't have to calculate a standard deviation, but you have to sort of understand it. We're going to cover that in the program. Okay, so let's look at this one. The circle graph above shows the proportion of pets per household surveyed. We have 800 households totally surveyed. How many households had 2 or fewer pets? The crazy thing with the graph is to read the directions carefully and look at the graph carefully. So a lot of people will say, oh, there's 2 pets. That's the striped vertical. So that means 16%. So we drop the percent, so that'll be 0.16. But because they say 2 or fewer, if you're not careful, we also have to include the 1 pet option and the 0 pet option. So the 1 pet option that's the polka dots, that would be 0.43. And then the 0 pets is the horizontal lines, which would be 0.18. And we would add this up, and that's going to be 0.77. This would be a calculator question. And then we're just going to multiply that times 800 households. And that will give us the number of 616. So the whole point of this question is to say, be very careful to read the words on a graph, and also, like if you're doing a vertical graph, read what's on the vertical axis and we read what's on the horizontal axis carefully. Okay, let's go to the next question. Each point in the scatter plot above represents a different person's systolic and diastolic pressures. What fraction of the 16 people tested had a systolic pressure, that's the horizontal line, over 140? So we can draw a line at 140. And a diastolic pressure over 90. Whoops, I shouldn't have covered that dot. Or both. So now we've sort of attacked the graph, and so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We don't count this guy twice because they have the both options. So that'll be 6 out of 16, and we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We can see that appears below as 3/8. So hopefully that's not too difficult. Again, we're trying to strengthen you so that everybody gets at least 10 more questions in math. Well, that's my job. So let's look at this next one. And you've done median, mean, and mode forever and ever because that's in the core curriculum across the country. So the median is the middle number. So in middle school, what they would have you do is write, oh, you have 5 30s. So because if in middle school, if they don't keep you busy, you keep the teacher busy. Trust me, I know. And then you have we have 6 31s. So you would write 31 out 6 times. Plus, there's 5 32s. And then there's 8 33s. 6 34s. And then 1 36. Okay, now you could write all these numbers out and find the middle number, but I'm trying to give you a time accessory to help. So let's see if you can see this. I'm going to do it in red.
Yeah,
that's up here. Okay.
Yeah, let me adjust it too. I think it's a little thinner than your other pen.
Okay. We're doing a slight technical option here. If anybody else has come in, please let us know.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so we have 5 30s, 6 31s, and 5 32s. So if I add up 5 plus 6 plus 5, I will get 16 up to the 32 mark. And then this way, I have 1, 6, and 8, which is 15 up to this mark. So then, hopefully you can see this, that the median has to be 32. Does everybody see that strategy?
Can you write a 15 there so they can see?
Yeah. So there's 15 all the way to here. There's 16 numbers all the way to here. So it has to be 32. Could you write out 5 30s?
Don't do it.
Yeah. 6 31s, 5 32s. You could still get the answer.
It'd take you like 5 minutes.
It would take you, it's a rabbit trail you don't want to go down. So I'm just trying to give you a quick tactic. That's sort of our strategy for an overview today. So if anybody has a question on this often confuses people, my strategy. Just say, that confuses me. Let me know, because somebody out there is probably confused. Okay. Now, the next section, we just put this on here. The next page, this is the list of all the stuff you have to know. But who cares, because we have packets for this. So yes, you can go on Khan Academy, but sometimes there you can get, you can go on rabbit trails and not be sure you've conquered everything. So here, let's try our first function question. A function is defined by the equation f of x equals 3/5 x minus 5. For what values of x does f of x equal 10? So my question is, for this one, we're going to do a whole packet on functions. There used not to be any questions at all on functions on the test. So do we put 10 in for the f of x, or do I put 10 in for x? Well, I'm going to put 10 in for f of x, right? So I'm going to put the 10 in here, and then I have to solve it. Okay, so I'm going to add 5 to both sides. I'll have 15 equals 3/5 x. So I'm going to multiply this by the reciprocal. So 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. So that's just a beginning function question. Like I said, today is just, you might be very, very good at some questions and some areas in math. So if you're a good mathematician, then you might want to go into science or engineering. My son that's the art teacher, he could not go into math. So we need a lot of different people in the world. So this is your last hard math push for if you're not going to major in math. He only had to take 2 easy courses at Penn State, 6 credits in easy math, and he was good. So let's look at a composite function. Maybe you've seen this before. And so you have to sort of let me know if you haven't. So we're going to put the 4 into the g function first. We work inside out, if you remember. This is sort of algebra 1. So 4 squared would be 16. Then we're going to put the 16 into the h function. 16 minus 4, thank you College Board, we would get 12. So hopefully everybody's good with that one. And like I said, we've had kids get perfect scores from this course, so we know it works. You just have to be patient enough to go along with us. So this one, if the function f has 5 distinct on the SAT means different. And like I said, this is just an overview. So we have 5 distinct zeros. It crosses the x-axis 5 times. We're going to go through all this, but this is just sort of an orientation. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The answer is A. And that's like a 5-second question. So we want one of those on your test. And since the College Board is producing this book and has all these materials, we can conquer the test pretty easily. Okay, now this next thing is a little more difficult. You might have learned it as, they might have called it synthetic division, or what else, Jim?
Polynomial long division.
Polynomial long division. I don't know if you've seen this before. Usually there's 1 on every test. So we're going to take 4x minus 2 and divide by x plus 3. I don't know if you've seen this before. Can you just tell me in the chat room how many of you have seen this before? Can you just say yes, 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 or no, I've never seen this? Because I want to have a feel, because I have school districts all across the board here. I just want to know how many of you have seen this in an algebra class before. Okay, so a lot of people have seen this. Okay, good. So this should be something you're sort of familiar with. So we're dividing x plus 3 into 4x minus 2. So this will go 4 times, correct? 4 times x is 4x plus 12. And I always parentheses protect this because then you have to make everything negative. And you will get negative 14. And then you just put that over the numerator over the denominator, which is x plus 3. And so answer choice D is correct. We could do a book one, but since we're going to do all of this in depth with the harder problems, so this is just like for me to get to sort of know your background and for you to sort of conquer things. Let's go on to the next page. Almost done with me for math, and then I'll give you over to Jim, and then I'll be back. We are going to give you a break. Okay, so we're going on to the next page. These are all additional topics you have to know. And remember, we're going to give you those. I'm going to give you those 8 formulas with a lot of practice. Don't let the trigonometry concern you because all you need is SOHCAHTOA, which we're going to do in a second, and also one identity that I'll show you, and that's it. So you do not need to know a whole trigonometry course. Here we do with the SOHCAHTOA. So I'm assuming most of you have had this. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Okay, so let's look at this one. The sine of theta, which is opposite over hypotenuse, is 6/10. So let's see if we're going to multiply this by 2 to get 6 over 10. So really what we have here is a multiple of a 3, 4, 5 triangle. And we have a whole lesson we're going to conquer on triangles, so not to worry. The trick is here that you have to go to 6, 8, 10, because that's a multiple of 3, 4, 5. So we need the cosine of theta, which will be the adjacent side, which is 8, over the hypotenuse, which is 10, and they just put it in decimal form, and so it will be D. So if anybody's confused on that, please speak up, because somebody else is probably confused too. Okay, so if this frustrates anybody, you don't have to, just let us know, because I'm here to explain things, not to confuse you. Okay, the next thing that you had in Algebra 2 that you need to know is complex numbers. Okay, yes, I can go over that again. Okay, so let me erase all this, and maybe the second time it'll become clearer.
They may be confused because you're doing that 6, 8, 10 thing.
Okay, so
I would just say 3 over x equals 0.6.
Okay, so maybe Jim is right. Another set of eyes on a question. So, SOHCAHTOA, that's something they can test you on. So the sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse, right there.
So 3 over x, because we don't know what it is 0.6.
So, yeah, this might be better. So 3 over, we don't know the hypothesis, and they tell us the sine is 0.6.
So now we know it's 5, x is 5, just cross multiply.
So
it's a 3, 4, 5.
Okay, so I should make this x, you think, instead of the hypotenuse?
And it just said, yeah, or whatever. So then 3 divided by 0.6 is 5.
So if we cross multiply,
3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
So you can put in a 4 for.
So x is 5.
And now you just need 4 over 5.
And so the cosine will be the adjacent one, which is 4 over 5, which is 0.8. Okay, Lindsay says, do you find the opposite, adjacent, and how do you find? Okay, awesome, Lindsay. So this is an awesome question. So when you have a triangle, so we're anchored at theta, okay? So the opposite is we go straight across. This will be the opposite side. The hypotenuse is always opposite the 90-degree angle. So let me just go to the whiteboard for a minute. Let me just try and humor me for a second. So if we have a triangle, and this is theta. Okay, so, and it's a right triangle. So opposite your 90-degree angle is always your hypotenuse. Opposite the theta is the one across the way, so that's our opposite. And then the adjacent is the neighbor that's right side by side. So the adjacent is the neighbor. Does that help? That was just a...
Lindsay, you might be wondering about the 3, 4, 5. Could you use the Pythagorean theorem to prove that to her?
Sure.
That's a Pythagorean triple.
Okay, so this one, the sine, they tell us is 3.
So 3 squared plus x squared equals 25.
Yes. So we would have 3 squared. But I think she wants to just get oriented with
Well, maybe she didn't know that was, I don't know.
and then we would just subtract the 9. Lindsay, does that help? That the opposite the right angle is always your hypotenuse. Opposite the theta, that's the one that's the opposite side. Okay, great.
You'd probably move on to the next one.
Yeah, so we're going to move on. Wait, I got off. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, we want to clear up everything along the way. No matter where you are, we want to increase your knowledge. So they don't tell you this, but maybe you've had i's. I is the square root of -1. It's an unreal number because you can't, this doesn't exist in reality. And so I squared is a -1. So we're just going to FOIL this first, outer, inner, last. So let's try it. Like I said, we're taking the step-by-step today. 3 times 3 is 9. The outer ones, when we FOIL, 3 times 4i is going to be 12i. These are actually the difference of two squares, which we're going to go into in another lesson. This will be -12i. And then the last one, I'll put i's in that guy, is going to be -16i squared. This is an overview. We're going to go way into depth in this. But you don't have to get a big 400-page geometry book or a big 400-page Algebra 2 book for the SAT. So these are additive inverses. So we're going to have 9 minus 16. So I squared is a -1. And 9 plus 16 is going to be 25. Okay, does anybody have a question on that one? I don't want to lose anyone. Okay, the last problem for me, and this is an overview, but I'll be back in a little bit. Now, the geometry, on a couple geometries, it'll say figure not drawn to scale. Because you might think this is an exact thing. So let's look at this. You've had volumes all through middle school. You know it's length times width times height, right? And they give you that formula. So we have an aquarium. It's 8 feet. Again, we're just strengthening your math on your mental, what's that bike thing? Peloton. Okay, 2 feet and 3 feet. Okay, so the top is opened on this aquarium. It's got glass. This is where it's a little different from middle school. This would be a hard calculator one. There's 7/8 inch glass there, and there, and there. And this would be for engineering people. What is the volume of water to the nearest cubic foot needed to fill the aquarium 3/4 full? So the water level is going to be about here. And they tell us you don't have to know a lot of conversions, just 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. So here, 3 feet would be 36 inches, 2 feet would be 24 inches, and 8 feet would be, I did this number crunch for you so we don't have to do it, 96 inches. But do you see what we have to do for this harder one is we have to take off 7/8 and 7/8. So 96 inches, if we take off that, is going to become 94.25 because I'm taking off 7/8 off of each side of this with a calculator, obviously. And then the 2 foot, which is 24 inches, and then I'm taking 7/8 and 7/8, and you could use your calculator. 7/8 is 0.875. Again, I'm just doing this like a cooking show because we're trying to save time. So that'll be 22.75, and then we don't have to worry about the top because the water level is only 3/4. This is all H2O. So down here, we have 7/8, so we're going to take just 1 off the 36, and so it will become 35.875. Then I'm going to multiply these 3 numbers together, and you would get 75314.5. I then divide by 1725 to get back into feet, because I have to get back into feet here, which is a little tricky. And I'm going to get 43.66. And again, I'm doing all the number crunching for you in the interest of time, and we only want 3/4 of that, so we put that in a calculator, and we would get approximately, we would get then about 32.74, which would be this answer. But all I wanted to show you basically with this is that the geometry, we're going to cover all that. It's only about 20% of the test, but we want you to feel comfortable with everything you see. On a couple problems, they'll have a figure not drawn to scale, so you can't trust your eyes. Okay, so before I leave you, does anybody have any questions for me? And has anybody just suddenly appeared on our radar? It's fine if you have. I'm going to give you to Jim to do the reading section, and then we're going to give you a break. So first of all, anybody in the chat room, do you have any questions before I turn you over to Jim for an overview of the reading? Again, we try to strategically pick the questions to strengthen everybody. And some of you might be bored on certain questions, and some of you might be, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to give you to Jim.
Okay, so I am Mr. Hessler. As my mother may have, I think she mentioned, I graduated from Penn State in English, so that's what we're going to talk about now. We're going to talk about the English on the SAT. We're going to start with the reading. So find this section of the packet, and today's mostly just going to be an overview, so we will go into much more depth as we approach these topics later. So the first section of the SAT will be the SAT reading test. You have an hour and 5 minutes to complete it, and there are 52 questions total. It is just reading comprehension, a little bit of vocabulary, but that's mainly what they're testing you on, reading comprehension. So every SAT, all of the SAT English is passage-based. So the reading test is passage-based, the writing test is passage-based, and the optional SAT essay is passage-based. So they're going to give you a passage. It's about a page long, 500 to 750 words per passage or pair of passages. Sometimes they have 2 smaller passages on a similar theme. And the topics are U.S. and world literature, history, social studies, and science. They always start with the literature passage, I've noticed, but those are the topics. There will be 2 science passages or 1 science passage and a pair of science passages. And here are the topics, same packet, next page. Oh, thanks for your help, John. Thank you. Okay. So, no other questions? Okay, good. So, here are the topics. It's just multiple choice. So, they will ask you to determine explicit or implicit meanings, cite textual evidence, determine central ideas or themes, understand logical relationships within the passage, understand words in context. That's what I meant about the vocab. That's that. Analyze word choice, analyze text structure, analyze points of view, analyze purpose, analyze arguments, and analyze quantitative information. Basically, they could throw in a chart or a graph. They're not going to ask you to find the slope of the graph. Basically, all they're going to do is ask you an English question. They will ask you to compare the graph or chart with the passage, and if the passage does not reflect what is contained in the graph, can you change the passage to reflect what is in your graphic? maybe a chart, a graph, pie chart, who knows. So that's sort of what they're going to ask you to do. And we're going to go over this first. So one of those topics I said was history, social studies, and that's this one. So the College Board is calling this the U.S. Founding Documents and the Great Global Conversation. I'm not sure why. That seems like a wordy title. It's just civics. All this is civics. I don't understand their title. But they will ask you, it could be a founding document. It could be something from the Declaration of Independence. It could be something by Jefferson, something by Hamilton, but it may not be. It could be a later work. It could be the Gettysburg Address. It could be perhaps the I Have a Dream speech, if it's maybe Dr. King passage or letter from a Birmingham jail. What the College Board is sort of saying, I guess, is that these kind of authors were in conversation with the founding fathers because they spoke about quote unquote American ideals, freedom, democracy, liberty, civil rights, etc. So it might be helpful to be familiar with those sorts of topics, but it's really just civics. It's just civics. So I'm not sure what the title, what they were thinking. They kind of violated their own brevity rule, in my opinion, but whatever. We're just going to go with it. So let's look at one. So here we have a great global conversation passage, and this one says it's by Samuel Adams, and he most certainly was a founding father. So this one's from the report of the Committee of Correspondence to the Boston Town Meeting from November 20th, 1772. So I'm going to have you read this reading passage and answer the 5 questions that are below, but I want you to be aware that this is about half the size of a real one. Just in the interest of time today, this is a small mini reading passage. They're actually twice as long as this, a whole page of text, and 10 or 11 questions. But today is just an overview, just to get a feel for the test. So just take about 5 minutes. I'll give you some time. Take about 5 minutes, read this small excerpt by Samuel Adams, and then see if you can answer the 5 questions below. Just take about 5 to do that, and we'll go over it together. Oh, and it could be helpful too. If you're finished, just put done or finished in the chat room. Probably every time we do a passage, just so I get an idea who's finished and who needs more time. Thank you. Okay, it seems like people are finishing up, so that's great. So let's look at the first question. Okay, so it says the primary purpose of the passage is what? So if you see primary purpose on the SAT, all they're testing you on are main ideas. Oh, main ideas, sorry. I apologize if my handwriting is sloppy on this. It's very hard to write on glass, it turns out. It's not like a chalkboard at all. But it's great. It seems to work pretty well for us. So they will test you on main ideas. If you see the words primary purpose, they're looking for main ideas. So does this text establish the Constitution of the United States? Does it rationalize the actions of the British Parliament, demand a reaction to the Boston Massacre, or does it primarily elaborate the rights of the colonists according to Adams? Well, we could probably throw out some of these immediately. Does it establish the Constitution of the United States? No, it's only 1772. There's no Constitution yet. Does it rationalize the actions of the British Parliament? Does this text in any way seem pro-British? I'm going to say no. So does it demand a reaction to the Boston Massacre, which hasn't happened yet because it's 1772? Or does it just elaborate the rights of the colonists? It just elaborates the rights of the colonists according to Adams, right? So they will test you on main ideas. They will all test you. They will also test you on vocabulary, though. I want to do one of these. So it says, as used in line 16, the word seated most nearly means what? And you'll get about 2 of these per passage. This is how they test vocabulary. They test it in context. So what does this verb to seed mean in line 16? Well, I'm going to read the line, and let's see if we can figure it out. So let's erase this. Every natural right, not expressly given up or from the nature of a social compact, necessarily ceded, remains. So there is the verb to cede. We have to figure out what it means. And for this type of question, I want to introduce a strategy. So here's the strategy. And the strategy is read the words they give you, these ones, back into the sentence. Only one of them will work. 3 of them will produce gibberish sentences. So let's try it. Let's try the word borrowed. Let's start with this one. Every natural right not expressly given up or from the nature of a social compact necessarily borrowed remains. So that makes no sense. So let's cross it off. What about relinquish? Maybe to cede something means to relinquish it. Let's try that one. Every natural right not expressly given up or from the nature of a social compact necessarily relinquished remains. So that makes perfect sense. So all we would do is bubble in B, and you got 10 points. Thank you, College Board. So try this strategy. Always read the words back in the sentence. Only one of them will work. 3 of them will not work, and you will produce gibberish sentences. We could try it with C or D. These would also produce gibberish, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to. So let's try number 3. Adams expressly indicates in the passage that all men have one of the following rights. So which is it? Is it the right to the pursuit of happiness, to enter into a social contract? Is it freedom of speech, or to mandate the state religion? So I like to say of the reading comprehension that the answers are somewhere on the page in front of you. All you have to do is go back and maybe find the answer if you don't remember it, but you read it. And this is one he expressly indicates. And that word expressly is important here, and that's why I highlighted it. This is one that he actually enumerates within the passage, because of course Adams would agree that you have rights that he does not enumerate. This is 2 paragraphs here. But this is one that he specifically does mention. So although he would agree that you have perhaps some of these rights, the one that he mentions is not the pursuit of happiness. That's another document. Oop, I'm on the highlighter still, sorry. It's not the pursuit of happiness. According to Adams, it's a right to life, liberty, and property. So that was a different document if you fell for that trap. He does not mention freedom of speech. Does he mention the idea that colonists have the right to mandate the state religion? You may be tempted into picking answer choice D. but because he does talk about religion in this passage. So you may be tricked into picking answer choice D because what is a mandate? A mandate is a requirement. Can we require that you worship a specific deity or practice a particular religion? According to Adams, no. He says something very much to the opposite of that. He says, every colonist has a right peaceably and quietly to worship God according to the dictates of his own conscience. So we got to cross it off. We cannot mandate the state religion. It's just B. So Adams in the passage indicates that the colonists have a right, according to him, to enter into a social contract. Now for question 4, we have to find the evidence for this. So this is a type of question that they added when they redesigned the SAT back in 2016. So basically, if we were writing, imagine we were writing an essay about the Committee of Correspondence to the Boston Town Meeting by Samuel Adams. We're writing an essay about Samuel Adams, and we put in our essay, well, Samuel Adams indicates in his correspondence that all men have the right to enter into a social contract. Could we just put that in our essay with just a period and just move on to the next sentence? No. Why? You must support every claim with evidence from the text if you're writing an essay. So you would annotate this. That's what they're trying to get you to be able to do. Could you cite the evidence if you were writing a report about this? Could you find the part where Adams talks about the social contract? I'm going to read it because maybe you missed it. But here we go. So this is lines 10 to 14. If you missed this, I'm going to read it now. When men enter into society, it is by voluntary consent, and they have a right to demand and insist upon the performance of such conditions and previous limitations as form an equitable original compact. Well, you know what? A compact is a contract. It's the same thing. Compact equals contract. So that's the same idea. A compact is an agreement. A contract is an agreement. So hopefully you realized that 4 was B, but that's sort of how they test this. They call it an evidence-based question. Can you find the evidence for the previous question? But you get about 1 or 2 of these per passage, and the tricky thing is, if you miss 3, of course you're going to miss 4. You know what I mean? That's why these can be hard. It's sort of a double whammy question, so just be aware that these are on the SAT. You will have to go back and find evidence to support some of your answers. And here's the last question. In the passage, Adams expresses which of the following with regard to natural laws and civil laws. So now we just have to find the part of the passage where Adams talks about natural laws and civil laws. So I believe this is right up at the top of the second column here. Here we go. All positive and civil laws should conform, as far as possible, to the laws of natural reason and equity. So now all we have to do is just find a paraphrase of that as an answer choice, which looks like B. When possible, civil laws should comply with natural laws. So this is how they test you on reading comprehension. I like to say that the answers are on the page in front of you. If you need to go back, you can refer to the passage, but you probably did read, and you probably could answer some of these from memory, or at least you should be able to because you just read this. So that's how this sort of section works. It's an hour and 5 minutes long. There are 52 questions. There's quite a few passages, but it's plenty of time. We have not had many students run out of time on this section, so I just want you to be aware of it. It's a little tougher on the ACT. Those of you who've taken one of those, the reading comprehension is a little bit quicker on that exam. All right, next we're going to talk about the writing and language test. So this is how they test you on grammar. Primarily, I'd say 80% of this section, they're just grammar rules. Subject-verb agreements, semicolons, colons, em dashes, clauses, everything that you've learned in English all the way from middle school up until now through high school. So this section. It's mainly grammar. So it's shorter. You only have 35 minutes to do it, and there are only 44 questions. The passages are also a little bit shorter. Now they are only 400 to 450 words per passage. The topics are also slightly different. So the topics for these passages will be careers, history, social studies, humanities, and science. And mainly they're testing you on grammar. I'm going to go over some grammar rules they will test you on. We're going to go over every single type of grammar question that they test on. So don't worry about that. So they will test you on main ideas, revisions, and support. They will test you on sentence formation. What makes a sentence? Is it rather a fragment that they give you? Can you figure out, can you find the fragment? Can you find a real sentence? They'll test you on subordination and coordination, so clauses, if you're familiar with those, subordinate clauses, coordinate clauses. They will test you on parallel structure. They will test you on modifiers. They will test you on shifts in verb, tense, mood, voice, and pronoun, person, and number. I'd say the test is very pronoun heavy. They will test you on pronoun antecedent agreement, subject verb agreement, and noun agreement. They will also test you on possessives. They will test you on frequently confused words. Just an example. So there is a THEIR is a plural possessive pronoun. They are is a contraction, and there is either an adverb, could be a few other things, could be an expletive. But anyway, watch out for frequently confused words. They will test you on those. They will test you on logical versus illogical comparisons. They will test you on conventions of punctuation. So I'm talking em dashes, semicolons, colons, commas, end of sentence punctuation. Be familiar with everything, right? Parentheses, parentheticals, anything. Well, any kind of punctuation, right? Idioms. They will test you on analyzing quantitative information. Again, they could throw in a chart or a graph. They'll ask you to refer to the text. They will ask you to refer to the graph. Can you make the text reflect what is in the graph? That's all that really is. Okay, so let's look at one. And again, this is a mini one. This is half the size of a real one. We only have 5 questions instead of 10 questions. Today is an overview. This is just a short one. But I would like you to try this short little writing passage. And I want to explain just a couple things because I was confused by this at first. But the block numbers are your question numbers. These bracketed numbers are not question numbers. All they did was sequence the sentences in this paragraph. All they did was number sentence 1, 2, 3, 4. So I just want you to be aware of that. These blocky numbers are your actual questions that you will do to the right. And A would be no change. That would mean for these first 4 that the text is correct as written. And they allowed you to change it. So you could use B, C, or D to manipulate this text and correct it, basically. So take about 5 minutes. Probably won't even take that long. Take about 4 minutes. Answer these 5 questions. And just put done or finished in the chat room. And we'll go over it when it seems like most of you have finished it. So take a little shot at this writing passage, and I will do it along with you. Okay, looks like some people are finishing up. Colin's finished. Ace is finished. Okay, looks like everyone's finishing up now, so I might as well start going over this one. So let's look at the first one, and this is a vocab question. They will test you on vocabulary. All right, so I'm going to read the sentence as written, and then we can determine if we want to change it. Let's try the first one. In order to pursue a career in this field, cell biologists must be adept with modern technologies such as data mining and imaging spectroscopy in order to impact their research forward. Utilizing techniques found in other disciplines, such as programming and statistics, I'm on the next sentence, sorry. Let me reread that. In order to pursue a career in this field, cell biologists must be adept with modern technologies such as data mining and imaging spectroscopy in order to impact their research forward. So, is this the best answer here? Would we prefer a different word here? And they give us some other options. We could dispel our research, impede our... Would you ever want to impede your own research? I'm just going to cross it off now. Or propel the research forward. And I'm going to read this one because I think it fits a little bit better. Okay, so they must be adept with these technologies in order to propel their research forward. So it fits a little bit better than impact. And impact means something physically hits something else. Sure, you would want your research to have an impact, noun, but impact as a verb means only that something physically hits something else. There are 10 seconds until impact, right? So let's cross it off. It has to be propel. So they will test you on vocab. That's sort of a vocab type question. They expect you to be familiar with these type of words. And I didn't mention this yet, but I probably should mention this. These words aren't particularly difficult. So for many, many years, for the longest time, since probably the inception of the SAT, it has been notorious for having extremely difficult vocabulary words, such as quixotic, supercilious, perfidy. I'm trying to think of a few others that may have been on this test before. In any case, they are gone. They took all of the hard vocabulary off of the test, and now they only expect you to be familiar with what they call Tier 2 words. So maybe those words I just used are Tier 3 words. This would be like a Tier 2. So to know what impede means, or impact, or propel, they call those Tier 2 words. So I like to give you the good news. You don't have to for years we produced our own vocab book with 2,000 words in it. You don't have to know those hard words anymore. I love it. So they made the test easier in my opinion, when it comes to English in that regard, when they redesigned it in 2016. So let's look at number 2. Utilizing techniques found in other disciplines such as programming and statistics, data must be extracted and analyzed by scientists for significant results. So this question is testing you on something called a dangling participle, which is an error that you can make in English, which you may or may not be familiar with. So I will try to explain this both ways. I'm going to explain this an easy way that I like to use to solve this type of question, but let's do it the English teacher way first. So an English teacher would say, hey, you know what? This word utilizing here, that's a part... Oh, I just crossed it off. I meant to highlight it. This word utilizing, well, that's a part of speech. That's a participle. Participles are just verbs to utilize, but they can act as modifiers. And in this case, it's modifying the wrong noun in the sentence. Who are the utilizers? And now I'm going to ask it the other way. So that's the English teacher way. The English teacher way would be to realize that we are modifying the wrong noun. I'm going to ask it maybe a more common sense way. Can data, which are numbers, can data utilize anything? Can data utilize techniques found in other disciplines? Can numbers utilize anything? No, they are not the utilizers. The utilizers are who? The scientists. So scientists needs to go where the word data is, and it's only a proximity thing. So the noun data is much too close to our verb utilizing, and the scientists are too far away. So now we are dangling this participle, and we are no longer modifying what we intend to, and the sentence no longer makes actual sense. So they will test you on dangling participles. We're going to go over them. The College Board loves these. These are on every SAT. I don't know why the College Board loves dangling participles. I'm just going to write here on every SAT because it is. They love these. Let's look at 3. Nevertheless, collaboration between biomedical researchers and clinicians is vital to advancing new therapies that will improve patient care. So here they are testing you on transitional words and phrases. And some of these transitions that they offer us here may produce the wrong result, right? So we have to figure out which one will create a logical transition in the context of our paragraph. And the only one that works here, we don't need the logic of a notwithstanding or a nevertheless. The only one that makes actual sense here, we don't need a logical transition D. We just need a simple additive transition B. Additionally, we're just adding some more information to give you, the reader. It might be helpful. Additionally, collaboration between biomedical researchers and clinicians is vital to advancing new therapies that will improve patient care. All right, so now we're going to move on to number 4. And if there are any questions, please just put them in the chat room. I am monitoring the chat room, but this seems like a very bright group, so there may not be any questions at all. Let's look at 4. All right, so question 4, I'm going to read the sentence as written. Other cell biologists may use their research to advance pharmacology, developing new drugs for cancer and other debilitating illnesses on top of that. So now we have to figure out, are these underlined words useful and necessary for our sentence? Are they unnecessary? Are they redundant? Are they contradictory? What are they? I'm going to introduce a concept here that hopefully you're familiar with if you've seen the PSAT or if you've taken an SAT on your own before. But the concept I'm going to introduce here is the concept of wordiness. The College Board hates wordiness. The concise answer choice is probably the right answer choice, which would be D, delete. Delete these words. They're doing nothing for our sentence, right? There's 4 words we can just delete, not helping our sentence at all, so do that. And we will see many examples of this. The concise answer choice is often the correct answer choice, the wordy answer choice. Even B or C would add words we don't need. Likewise, or in addition, 1 or 2 extra words we don't need. The College Board likes short and sweet. The College Board likes simple and straight to the point. The College Board hates convoluted, wordy answer choices. College Board hates roundabout sentences that never really get to what they're talking about. The College Board hates flowery language that confuses the reader, basically. All right, so let's do number 5. Here's our last one for this mini writing passage. Here is a composition and style sort of question. So I said the majority of these questions would be grammar questions. Here's a sort of a revision question. The author is considering adding the following sentence. These clinical trials may hold the key to discovering novel pathogens or identifying molecular information vital to the diagnosis and treatment of patients. So this is a sequencing question. So they already sequenced all the sentences within this paragraph for us. And now we are going to add a sentence. We have to figure out where it goes. But for a sequencing question, I like to say that they always give you a clue within the sentence. There is always a clue in your sequencing question. There will always be a clue. And in this case, I'm going to highlight the clue. Here's the clue. These clinical trials. So that's your clue. And because of these words, these clinical trials, this sentence may only go in one place within this paragraph. If you put it in any other place within this paragraph, you would lose meaning and you would confuse your reader. So where does it go? It must immediately follow the sentence that talks about the clinical trials. So which sentence talks about the clinical trials? Well, it's sentence 3. Others may assist in designing clinical trials and assess blood or tissue samples from patients involved in such experimental medicine. And once you have chosen a home for your sentence, always read your sentence back to back with the other sentences now that you have moved it. It should fit like a glove. It could go nowhere else. I'm going to do it right now. Others may assist in designing clinical trials and assess blood or tissue samples from patients involved in such experimental medicine. These clinical trials may hold the key to discovering novel pathogens or identifying molecular information vital to the diagnosis and treatment of patients, which was answer choice C after sentence 3. So always find your clue. I like to always just circle it because they don't let you have a highlighter on the SAT, but I like to circle the clue, see if I can find the clue, and then look back to the passage, but they always give you a clue. So that's the writing passage. And for most of you, that's the whole SAT. Some of you will write this SAT essay. It is optional. I'm going to briefly go over it today. We will go over it in more depth in the SAT essay lesson that is coming up. But today is just an overview. We're going to briefly talk about it just so basically you can determine whether or not you will have to write one. That's going to be sort of let's call it a homework assignment. It's not going to be that hard because I'm going to talk about it now. So yes, it's optional. So you can sit for 2 versions of the SAT. You can sign up for the SAT with essay, or you can sign up for the SAT without essay. And the SAT with essay is a little bit more expensive. It's probably $15 or $20 more because they have to pay those graders to read your essay. That takes more time, so it's more expensive. So the College Board has to pay those people. That's why it's slightly more if you want to write the SAT essay. So it's optional. You can sit for these 2 versions of the test. These are the only 2 versions of the test that they offer. Sure, they offer an international test, but it's the same test. So you have to make a determination. Which version of the test should you sign up for? So you'll say to yourself, okay, well, if this essay is optional, then I'm not going to write it. But it's not so much optional for you as it is optional for the university. So some universities require the SAT essay, some universities recommend the SAT essay, and other universities, most universities, neither require nor recommend the SAT essay. So how do you find out if a school you're interested in requires or recommends the SAT essay? There's a simple way to do it. You're going to go and I'm going to actually have you, if you just Google something, you'll get right there. So I don't have the URL in front of me, but if you Google this term, SAT essay policies, this should be the first page that comes up on the College Board website. Make sure you're on the College Board website. But if you Google SAT essay policies, the first entry that comes up on the collegeboard.org website is a search engine. And this search engine, you just put in the name of the school you're interested in, and it will tell you if they require or recommend the SAT essay, or that they neither require nor recommend the SAT essay. Just to give you an idea of schools around here, Penn State main campus, where I went, does not require the SAT essay. Pitt does not require the SAT essay. Duquesne does not require the SAT essay. Most schools do not require the SAT essay, but you have to be certain that the school you're interested does not, because some do. And it seems like maybe more competitive schools require the SAT essay so they can winnow their applications. Small liberal arts colleges seem to require the SAT essay, whereas larger state schools don't seem to. But we're going to go over exactly how to write one in case you do have to write one. But today's just an overview. It's going to be brief. So your homework, find out if you have to write this. So all I want you to do is just find out if you have to write this. So just Google SAT essay policies, go to collegeboard.org. Make sure you're on the collegeboard.org website, not some other website. The collegeboard.org website has a search engine. Its sole function is this, to tell you whether or not you require the essay. One other thing I would want to say is you may want to call the admissions department of a school you're interested in anyway. So while you have them on the phone, it might be a good idea to find out if they require or recommend the SAT essay. Just call them, ask for someone in admissions. They'll transfer you over. Tell them that's what you're interested in. Hey, also, while I have you on the phone, what is the average SAT score for an incoming freshman at your institution? So I would probably get that information while you have them on the phone. So we're going to briefly talk about how to write this. It is passage-based. All of the English on the SAT is passage-based. They are going to give you a source passage, and they are going to ask you this question. It is going to be this question. The SAT essay prompt never changes, so I'm going to read it. Here's the prompt. And I want to mention this. In the interest of time, I'm a little tongue-tied today. In the interest of time, we will not read a source passage today. We'll do that when we get to the essay lesson. But here's the prompt. As you read the passage below, consider how the author uses evidence, such as facts or examples, to support claims, reasoning to develop ideas and to connect claims and evidence, stylistic or persuasive elements, such as word choice or appeals to emotion, to add power to the ideas expressed. Assignment. Write an essay in which you explain how the author builds an argument to persuade his audience to increase funding for space exploration. So that must be what this passage we read is all about. JFK's passage must be an argument about this. In your essay, explain how the author uses one or more features mentioned or features of your own choice to strengthen the logic and persuasiveness of his argument. Be sure that your analysis focuses on the most relevant aspects of the passage. This part's important. Your essay should not explain whether you agree with the author. The College Board does not care. The College Board expressly does not want your opinion, but rather explain how JFK builds his argument to persuade his audience. So the passage will be different. The source passages change. You may not get a passage by JFK. Maybe you get a passage by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Maybe you get a passage by someone else. Maybe someone you never even heard of. Could be from a magazine, a periodical. All you're going to know is that it will be an argument. Well, why is this important? Because what they are grading you on is a rhetorical analysis. So the good news is the prompt will always look exactly like the one I just read. They are testing you on rhetoric. Rhetoric is the art of making arguments. It's a formal discipline. It has been studied for thousands of years. Aristotle famously wrote about rhetoric. We know a lot about rhetoric. So it will be an argument that you read, and you will have to analyze the argument based on those qualities that they mention. So we're going to talk a little bit about structure for your essay. We are not going to go into depth about how to exactly craft an essay today. We're just going to briefly talk about the structure that they want, and we're going to do a little bit more math, actually, a little bit. So the structure that they want is going to be paragraph structure. Why is this important? Well, imagine we just submitted a big blob with no paragraphs. You're instantly at a 1 out of 4 for the 3 categories that you are graded on. That's bad. So you need to have paragraph structure. You need to have an introduction, some supporting paragraphs, and then a conclusion. What happens if we run out of time and we didn't write the conclusion? You're automatically at a 2 out of 4 for that category that I just mentioned. So this is very important. So you're going to want to have a thesis somewhere in your introduction. This is merely what you are trying to prove. It'll probably be toward the end of your introductory paragraph. And your thesis is just your argument, but by the nature of the SAT essay prompt, your thesis will encompass, in this case, JFK's thesis, the author's thesis. What you are trying to prove will be slightly similar to what the author is trying to prove, just based on the prompt. So you must have a thesis if you want a good score. If you forget the thesis, you're automatically at a 1 out of 4 for that same category that I just mentioned. That's why we're going over all of this. Here's a sample thesis. This is just an argument. This would work. So imagine we read this passage. In his address to Congress, JFK constructs his argument to persuade his audience to increase funding for space exploration through an appeal to the American ideals of freedom, peace, and discovery. Okay, so we wrote our introduction. This thesis is in our introduction. Now we are probably going to have a paragraph about freedom, a paragraph about peace, and a paragraph about discovery, because we need to refer back to our thesis in our body, our supporting paragraphs. So maybe we have a paragraph about this notion of democracy, freedom, perhaps in comparison to, I don't know, maybe a Soviet system, perhaps a less free system, maybe something like that's in JFK's speech. Perhaps a paragraph about how space exploration will be necessary in order to preserve the peace with the Soviet Union. And I wasn't alive at the time. I wasn't alive during the space race. I wasn't alive during the Cold War, but this was a very real concern at the time. They thought nuclear war was imminent. What is the difference between a rocket with a person at the end of it versus a rocket with a payload at the end of it? No difference, zero difference. So maybe we have a paragraph about peace. And then lastly, a paragraph about this notion of human discovery. I think JFK famously says something to the extent that reaching the moon may one day bring mankind to the edge of the solar system. So maybe you include a quote or some paraphrase from JFK to create your argument within that paragraph. And then you're just going to wrap it up with a conclusion. Your conclusion merely needs to create closure. It's clear to me that this essay is over. I can go grade another one. And we're going to talk about how they score these now. So here's how they score the SAT essay. Your response is just scanned into a computer, and all they do is just email it to two graders. So there'll be maybe a grader, and a retired English teacher in Connecticut gets your essay, and a retired English teacher in California gets your SAT essay. Then they each give it a grade from 1 to 4 in 3 categories, and then you add the scores from each grader together, and you get your total score. So the highest score you could theoretically get would be a 4, 4, 4 from each grader. So therefore, that would be 24. That would be the highest score you could ever achieve on the SAT essay. That would be a gold star, smiley face sort of essay. I would like to read that essay. A 24 would be hard to get. These are the categories that they grade you on. I mentioned one of these categories already. They grade you up to 4. So this would be 4 of 4 for the highest score that they give you for these categories. Right here, this is the actual College Board rubric. This is what's hanging on those teachers' desks as they grade your essay. And you will actually be able to see your own SAT essay that you wrote on test day because they scan it in a computer. And when you get your scores, you can read the essay that you wrote. There will not be a single red pen mark on the essay. All they do is give you a number. Also, as you send your scores to colleges, if you sit for the SAT with essay, colleges will see your essay score. And also, they will get your actual essay. If they wanted to, they could read the essay that you wrote on test day. Do they have time for this in admissions? I don't think so, but they could, right? So imagine we had 2 candidates. Each candidate has a 1300. They're both strong candidates. Who do we admit into our prestigious institution? Let's pick the person who can write. They could do that. They have the information. You both wrote essays. They could pick the better writer if they wanted to. So I just want you to be aware that that's what's going on. And we're going to briefly go over these categories before we do a little bit more math. There is a reading category. I'm going to go over this briefly. The response demonstrates thorough comprehension of the source text. You understood it. The response shows an understanding of JFK's central claim. And you understood what he was talking about. The response is free of errors of fact or interpretation with regard to the text, so it is important that you are not putting words into JFK's mouth. You use quotation and evidence, paraphrase, quotation, paraphrase, whatever, from the passage to make your argument. That's the first category. The analysis category. This should sound very similar to the prompt. The The response offers an insightful analysis of the source text and demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of the analytical task. The response offers a thorough, well-considered evaluation of the author's use of evidence, reasoning, and/or stylistic and persuasive elements, and/or features of the student's own choosing. That should sound very familiar. Where did that all come from? That was in the prompt. The response contains relevant, sufficient, strategically chosen support for claims or points made. The response focuses consistently on those features features of the text that are most relevant. And here's that last category I was talking about, the writing category. This is the nuts and bolts of English category. Spelling counts, grammar counts, capitalization counts. It all counts. That's this category. Your response is cohesive and demonstrates a highly effective use of in command of language. The response includes a precise central claim. You have an introduction and conclusion. We saw what would happen to this category if you do not have those. You're at a 1 out of 4. There's some progression within your writing. There's some variety within your sentence structures. You use all of your language is correct. You do not use any words contrary to their definitions, English definitions. The response maintains a formal style and objective tone. The response shows a strong command of the conventions of standard written English and is free or virtually free of errors. Maybe you forgot a comma somewhere, but that was it. Otherwise, it was perfect. That means you get a 4. So that's very hard to aspire to, but that's what it would take to get a 4 in the writing category. And that's the actual SAT essay rubric. So now we have gone over all of the English that's on the SAT essay. We've gone over the reading section, we've gone over the writing section, and now we've gone over the optional SAT essay section. So that's all the English that's on there. Today's just an overview. We'll go into more depth next time. But I do want to grab Mrs. Hessler for a little bit more math. So I would like you to find the packet that says part of Algebra 1. So see if you can find this packet in your collection. Find this guy, and I will go collect Mrs. Hessler, and we will do a little bit of algebra. Oh, you want him to take a break?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know what, take a, how long? 10 minutes, 5 minutes, what? Take 5. Let's take a 5-minute break. Get some water, you can use the restroom.
And then let us know when you're back.
Yeah, we'll be back
at
what, 4:05? That works for me. Just gonna stick this here.
So do I have that packet up here in this
Oh,
section?
yeah. Let me show you how to get to that just so you can see. So this is how you do it. Click those 3 lines there. And then click that. And then click here so it gets that out of the way. Yeah. Now I like to zoom in a little bit.
So you be with me, Captain.
Okay. Oh, this is yours.
That's mine. Okay, so it's 4:05. So if you're back, if you just say put it in the chat room, I'm back. So we know you're with us. And we're going to start with this packet, Heart of Algebra Part 1. So we only have 9 packets to cover all the math on the test, which is pretty awesome. Okay, thank you, people. Thank you, guys. Just let me know you're back. That's wonderful. Let's see. Thank you, Bessie. Okay, everybody's back. I think, who are we waiting for? Lauren, maybe? Okay, Lauren's back.
Yeah, but just go for it.
Emma's back. Okay, so I just wanted to, John's back, good. So I wanted to tell you, just before we dive into this packet, this is a real passion with mine. I've done this for 25 years, my own 4 kids. It helped them so much, because where can a teacher make a difference in someone's future in 12 lessons? So that's why this is so, it's what I do. So we're here to serve you. I told you my older son that some of you had as an art teacher. I hope he treated you well. He saved us half tuition at Penn State. My middle son, who I haven't mentioned yet, he had to wrestle. Now, the only people that will know this is people in Mount Lebanon, but he had to wrestle Mr. Alamang all through high school. So Mr. Alamang is a beast, and Andy had to wrestle him. Well, he's 6'5", but when he first took his SAT, he had like a 4-something math score. And I said, Andy, that's not very good. And he said, well, what do you want? A good son or a good SAT score? And after a while, he kept improving and improving. And so he eventually got into Penn State, Maine, and then he majored in chemistry, and now he works for Gilead in California, that came up with the remdesivir drug. So what I'm trying to do is encourage you that just staying with us can be a key to your future. So let's go on to first page here. Okay. The SAT, I guess that's yeah.
Something's wrong.
It's this one.
Oh, this one's like this.
Yeah.
Well, you can just
I'm
do
fine.
that. You're fine just going back and forth with your finger.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start. Our examples are always in the gray. Tom is X years old. Susan is 3 years less than 7 times 10.
Let me try to open a better version. That's going to get annoying. This will just take a minute.
Okay, Jimmy, wait, technical difficulties.
No, it's not really that difficult.
Hopefully you've got to get a refreshment. That's another advantage of taking this at home. One little quick. fix here.
Yeah, let me see.
In one, it's that way. In the other section, it's...
Yeah, let's just take a second.
Yeah, this will just take a second.
I think that this will be way better.
And so think of this as an investment in your future, just as important as your grade point average. And also, you can save your parents a lot of money, and you can even bribe them and say, can I have a used car when I graduate? Most of you maybe have a car. I don't even know. I'm fine with this.
I can fix it.
Hold on.
You're fine with it?
Yeah, I'm fine.
All right. Sorry.
So we have our IT guy working on this, but we're fine. Okay, so ready. So Tom is X years old. Susan's age is 3 years less than 7 times Tom's age. How many years old is Susan? And so you can see Susan is 7 times Tom's age minus 3. Not so bad. So let's look at this one. Melissa paid $80 last month to her health club, and she visited the club at least once last month. If she visited the club X times, so remember my pick the number up strategy. Let's say she went 8 times, so she would be paying $10 a time, right? Which answer would kick out the $10 a time if we put in 8? And so it would be D, right? So a little of this too, I don't know how rigorous your school year is now. Probably, hopefully by March we'll all be vaccinated and this will be a distant memory. But we want to keep your brain, on a trajectory where you're stimulated and working. Courtney goes to college 580 miles from home. So if this was a graph, she starts 580 miles from home. She can make the trip home in 10 hours. Traveling, she's going at 58 miles per hour. What function represents how many miles Courtney is from home after she's been driving for X hours at 58 miles per hour? So she gets home where it's 0. She's home. So we're going to do this next class. We're going to go over lines and angles and systems, which amounts to about 100 points on every SAT. And that's why I don't want you to take the first test until we've gone over next Sunday's class. So here, we would start at 580. So after 1 hour, she would have covered. So the answer for this one is C. Does that make sense? She's starting at 580 and she's going home at 58 miles per hour. Okay, here's the strategy of picking numbers, which also works for the algebra, and I'll be showing you that on harder questions. So here's our example. Angela has X photographs, and her photo album can hold Y photographs per page. If there are Z photographs left over after she's filled the album, how many pages are in the album in terms of X, Y, and Z? Well, you maybe could, like I said, if you're a math savant, which is a very smart person in math, you might see this right away. But we want to try to work out another example about picking numbers.
Hold on. It's because you're supposed to be over here. This is what I wanted to fix, but...
No, I'm correct.
Yeah, well, it goes... Doesn't it go this?
No, I'm good.
And then this, and then that. It goes this page, that page, this page, that page, for all of these. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Because that page, so you got to do these ones. Paper
okay,
towel.
sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, number 3. We have a different setup than you guys do.
I think it for some reason exported it double paged. I don't know. I'm gonna figure that.
Okay, so we're on page 3. So a paper towel dispenser gives an 8-inch length of paper towel every time the sensor is activated. Which of the following functions X gives the inches of paper towels dispensed in terms of N, the number of times the sensor is activated? So let's say we're going to hit it 2 times. So we should get 16 inches of paper towel. So that would be answer choice B. Not so bad, right? If anybody has a question, Jim's monitoring the chat room, so sorry about that little glitch with the example. This one's getting a little bit harder. The sum of x and 4, so we're going to put that right here, is less than the square of the difference between x and 4, but greater than the square of 1/2 x. So again, what they've been sort of talking about is a COVID slide where people lose skills. Hopefully your school is keeping you on track, but this course is another way to keep your brain growing, your synapses growing. So the question is, do I have to square the 1/2 if it's inside the parentheses? And the answer is yes. So 1/2 times 1/2 will be 1/4. It's less than x plus 4, which is less than x minus 4 squared, which looks a lot like answer choice A. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. Okay, let's go on to number 5. I'm going to bring this up a little bit, Jim, here.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Just do that.
Okay. So you've had direct variation all through school. As one thing goes up on the x, the other thing goes up in the y. So the time t required to pick apples varies directly with the number of bushels of apples to be picked b. So the more bushels you pick, the greater the time. So that'll be KB. But it's inverse, and maybe you've had inverses in science class where it goes this way, right? The more people you have, the time goes down. So inversely, so direct is just like, let me just do it this way. Direct you've had in school is y is kx. Inversely would be what k over x. So as something goes up, the other thing goes down. And so the more people, many hands make less work. So we just put a P down there, and it looks a lot like answer choice C. Again, thank you, College Board, for 10
so
points.
Now you're over.
Okay, so I have a
Now
little...
you're on this example.
Okay, so now, I'm sorry about that. We have a different setup here.
Fix that.
So anyway,
Oh no! Now you're on this one.
Okay, this one that I sort of covered before. Sorry. So our picking numbers is a strategy when you don't know what to do. So let's say Angela has X photographs, and her so we're going to say 10 photographs. Her photo album can hold 3 photographs per page, and that would obviously give us, our Z is going to be 1 photograph left over. How many pages are in the album in terms of X, Y, and Z? So you don't have to draw the pictures on the test. You can sort of say there's going to be 3 on a page. That's 3 pages with 1 left over. So the number of pages in the album would be 3. So, and you could pick any numbers. I just pick these. You don't want to pick crazy numbers. So here, let's see if I can go down. Yeah, I got it. So we wanted to get 3. Which answer will kick out of 3 when I use 10, 3, and 1? So the first one, that would give us 11 over 3. That doesn't work. This would give us 13, which doesn't work. This one, let's try this. 10 minus 3 over 1. That doesn't give us 3. But look at D. 10 minus 1 all over 3 would give us 9 over 3, which would give us 3 pages. So we're going to sort of...
Now you're on these ones.
Okay, so now we're going to sort of employ this. Okay, so number 1.
Do that so they can read it.
Okay. I'd like you to try this one and tell your answer in the chat room. because I'm throwing the ball to you now. So I'd like you to pick a number of minutes for your call, whatever you want N to be. Don't pick 1,000,000 and don't pick a fraction. And then figure out how much your phone call is going to cost, and then find the answer that works back. Okay, so I'm going to throw the ball to you now. You can pick any number N you want, but don't pick a high number and don't pick a fraction. And once you get your answer, take your time. Just let us know in the chat room what you got. And if you're stuck, just say I'm confused. Okay, we have some answers coming in, some C's and some B's. Okay, let's try it. I'm going to make my phone call 4 minutes. Okay, so the first minute, I might have a 4-minute call. The first minute will be 50 cents. And then I'm going to have 3 minutes at 20 cents each, which is 60 cents. So I want my call to be $1.10 when I put in 4 for N. Okay, so let's try A. A is way too big, right? 0.8 times 4. I'm going to be paying $3 for the call. Let's try B, which some of you had. So we're going to put in 4. Well, in my example, you might have had a different number. That would give me 80 cents plus 50 cents, which is $1.30, which is too much. C is right, because look at C. I'll put the 4 in here. 4 minus 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 60 cents plus 50 cents. C is my answer. Okay, hopefully everybody's good with that one. And it makes sense that you would take off the first minute. But if you can't see that, this is a good strategy for taking yourself out of the abstract world and putting yourself into concrete situations. Let's try number 2. For every $10 Nakia earns, she gives $4 to her younger sister, Jasmine, who helps her. Which of the following gives the relationship between D, the dollars Nakia earns, and J, the dollars she gives to Jasmine? Well, let's say Nakia is 10. And let's see, she's going to give $4 to Jasmine. So let's start the first one. So we're going to have 10 equals, so we're going to have D be 10, actually. So 10 equals 4 times 4 over 10. No, no way, right? Let's try B. 10 equals 10 times J, which is 40.
Just 4. 10 times 4. Over 4.
Yeah, which I just did.
Right, sorry.
10 times 4 over 4. We have a winner. So B works. So this is just a strategy. We're also going to use it in the algebra today. So let's try 3. The price of 10 pounds of apples, let's just say D is 10 pounds. So our apples are $1 a pound. 6 of the apples weigh an average of 1 pound. Okay. So which of the following is the average price in cents of a dozen such apples? Okay, well, let's say, I don't want to use 10 there. If we have $1 a pound for 6 apples.
10 pounds is $10. That's what you like to do, right?
Yeah, so we want a dozen apples, which will be $2, right? And so $2 is really 200 cents.
So you just said let D equal 10. You just picked 10 for D?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then 200 cents.
So it's $1 a pound. So we have 6 apples weighing $1. So
2 pounds, 12 apples.
12 apples, a dozen apples would give us $2, which is 200 cents. And so if we put 10 in for D, it works for answer choice A. Any questions so far?
So now I gotta figure out which page you're on.
Okay, we gotta figure out the next
I think
page.
you're back over here to this one you really love.
This was the last question on an SAT. So let's read it together. To celebrate a colleague's birthday and coworkers in an office. Okay, so we don't want to deal with all this abstraction. So let's just say we have 5 coworkers. And even if you follow along for these hard ones, that's great. And they're going to contribute to a catered lunch. And let's say the whole lunch is $100, which makes it reasonable because it's $20 a lunch normally. See if the coworkers are cheap and they're not going to contribute anything. So let's say we have 2 cheap people. Which of the following represents the additional amount in dollars that each of the remaining coworkers must contribute to pay for the lunch? So that means 3 people into $100. Now they're paying 33.33 cents for the lunch. So the additional amount they have to pay is $13.33. That's what we're after. And you see, if you were dealing abstractly with this, you could easily make a mistake. So we just want to get an answer that's $13.33. So let's try A. So 100 over 5, no, that's the $20 a lunch it costs normally. Let's try B, $100 for the total bill. N minus C is 3. No, that's the 33.33 to cover the cheap people. But we want the difference from their original $20 price. So this one, let's try this, 100. N minus C is 3 over N, which is 5. That's not going to work. Let's try D. And you would have a calculator on this one. So that's C times X, that's $200, divided by 5, N minus C, which is 3, and 200 over 15. Yes, that'll give us the $13.33 we need. So, for example, if they give you a question even in geometry and they say, if the radius of a sphere is increased by a factor of 3, what's the difference in the volume? And you could maybe think abstractly, but you could also pick a radius, figure out what the volume of the sphere is, then multiply that radius by a factor of 3, and then you'll see what happens to the volume. So it could come in all forms. So let's try this one. A telephone company charges X cents. So let's say X is 25 cents for the first minute of a call, and charges for any additional time at the rate of Y cents per minute. So let's make X 50 cents because they always make the first call the most. I guess we're going to deal with cents. And then the Y is going to be 25 cents after that. Like when you hire a plumber, you have to pay more for the first hour or for him to come. So a certain call costs $7.75. Which of the following represents the length of the call? Let's figure it out. If we have $7.75, the first minute will be 50 cents. Then we'll have $7.25 divided by 25 cents a minute, and that'll be 29 minutes, which will give us a call. Our call is going to be 30 minutes. So we want to get 30 out of this, which expression will give us 30. So the first one, 7.75 minus 50 cents over Y, 25 cents, that will give us 29, which is not going to work. This one, 7.75 plus 50 cents will be 8.25 minus Y is 8 over 25. That won't work either. Let's try C. So we'll have 7.75 minus X, which is 25, 7.50 plus Y, which was 25 cents, which will give us 7.75 over 25, and that will give us 30 minutes. So the answer for that one is C. Okay, I'm going to let you try this next one. At a clothing store, Mark bought 2 equally priced shirts and 1 pair of pants. The price of the pants was N dollars, and the total price of the 3 items was $85. What was the price in dollars for each of the shirts in terms of N? So you're going to make your pants a certain amount. You're going to subtract that from the 85 and then find your price for the shirt. And then tell me in the chat room what your answer is for this one. So bring it into you could do it abstractly if you want to, or you could pick a concrete number. And then just tell me what your answer is in the chat room for this one. Number 6. Okay, we already have one correct answer. But I don't know if we know who that is for real, right?
No, we know those.
Oh.
That's John Kane.
Oh, John Kane, you're Shakonut. Okay. Yes, it is D. Good job. They're all coming in. We'll wait for a few more people. So I'm just saying my pants are going to be cheap. They're going to be $10. Then I have $75 divided by 2. So in my scenario, the shirts were, so everybody got D. So scholars, we have a bright group.
We do.
Okay, let's go on.
Yeah, now we're over here.
We're over here. Okay, there's usually one of these on every test, and so we want this to be a surefire 10 points. I'm on page 7 in the packet. Okay, a coffee blend contains Sumatra beans, which cost $6 per pound, and Kona beans, which cost $14 per pound. If the blend costs $12 per pound, which of the following systems of equations could be used to determine how much of each coffee is in 60 pounds? So S is our Sumatra beans, K is our Kona beans. So the S plus, first we have our pounds, which will be 60, and then we have our money equation. So the Sumatra beans are $6 a pound, the Kona beans are $14 per pound, and then 60 times the blend of the thing will be 720. And so the answer for this one is C. Okay, because the blend is, I can't really see it here, $12 a pound.
Yeah. Now
okay. Yes. Let's try this one. The width of a rectangle, so don't be stymied by word problems. The width of a rectangle is, which is equals, the length minus 5. And we want to get the perimeter. The perimeter is 48 feet. So the perimeter is going to be 2W plus 2L is 48 feet. So let's maneuver this equation a little bit by adding 5 to both sides. So we'll have the width plus 5 equals the length. And then we'll have the perimeter, which is 2 widths and 2 lengths. And voila, it's answer choice A. Okay, now we're going down to one more question, and then I'm going to have you try one in the book. Because usually there's one of these on every test. And what I advise you to do, instead of plugging through all these answer choices, which might confuse you, set up your own equations here. So when we go over a bridge, it's $8 for a car and $12.50 for a truck. During a 3-hour period, so our cars are X and our trucks are Y, and we have 345 of them. And now we have our money equation. So the cars are X, so we have 8X plus our trucks are a little bit more, they're $12.50. And the total amount of money is 3048. So instead of going through all this and I've had a lot of people just get confused when they look at all this. If you sort of anticipate it before the test makers, you're going to find this equation, which is matched in answer choice B. Okay, so now I'd like you to try a book one. I'd like you to go to page 601 in the blue book, and we're going to try number 6. Because usually there's one of these on every test. And by the way, we have last March, the test was released, so eventually, those of you who want it, we will be able to send it to you. So you'll have lots of practice to keep your brain going. So let's try 601, number 6, and come up with the answer.
You should tell them that thing about don't even look at the answer choices before you've constructed your own equations.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Oh, you said that?
I did.
Yeah.
Don't, if you go...
That's the key, that's the key.
Yeah, construct your own before you look at the answer choices. Because you can get lost in all that, all those answers. And so on test day, this will be another very easy one for you to knock out of the park and have another 10 points on your way to your future. Yes, the answers are coming in correctly. We'll let everybody lock in an answer. So this is an interactive program. Good, Sam. The only drawback of this is that I can't see your faces, but everybody's conquering this. That's awesome. Great job, Lena. Everybody. So we have a few more people. Yes. Weston nailed it. And so when you see one of these on the test, it should be very easy. Colin got it. So our bench chairs and our lawn chairs are going to equal 350. Then we have our money equation, which is costs a little bit more to get a bench chair plus the lawn chair. And the total money they pick up is $19,250, which is answer choice D. So the best way for that kind of, good job, everybody, nailed it. Okay, now we're going into algebraic expressions. Wait.
Let me help you find it.
Okay, I got this.
Yep.
This part. So we don't give you a lot of fluff in this class. Every question we give you, we've thought about it strategically. So Lindsay and Bassie got it as well. So you know from all your algebra work that you can only add like terms, right? And you know the distributive property, obviously. Factoring often comes in the end of the test, as you'll see as we go through. Today we're just putting our big toe in the water. Yeah, I'm going to be there in a second.
Oh, you are?
But factoring.
Oh, factoring.
Yeah. Whoa, we're really all over the place here, but it's good.
No, we're factoring.
We're factoring. So when you factor, and this will be at the end of the test usually, you take out what's common to both and you bring it out front. And then if you distribute, you get it back. So they're inverse functions. So here we took out a 4. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do, this is just a litmus test of your algebra skills. So I would like you to simplify these examples, factor these. So you're just going to go through, and this is just a test of your algebra skills, and we'll put the answers here. So you're just adding like terms, distributing when you need to. I'll give you time for this. We might just go a little over today. We'll see how the time works. But since you're sheltered in your homes, hopefully by March we'll all be vaccinated, back out in the world, and you guys will have a solid SAT score in your application process for the next stage of your life. We just did this to be sure that all of your algebra basic skills are strong.
We just tell them to say done when they're done.
Okay, can you just tell me when you're done in the chat room? That would be great.
That's really handy for the English.
Yeah, that's handy, so I don't have to. But
in the classroom, you just see faces, you know.
Yeah, that's the only bad thing about this is I can't see your faces. But we're together helping your future in a dramatic way. Okay, so we have one person done. A few more people are done, but take your time. Like I said, this is sort of a process. So today was an orientation, but hopefully some of the examples benefited you, and then we're going to get on to next Sunday and then assign you a practice test. Okay, so we have a lot of people done. Do you think that's everyone?
That's enough.
Okay, so
It's
let's.
more of an exercise.
Yeah, this is just an exercise. So the first one, just check your own work. You should have 3x minus y because there's 3 x's. 2 of the y's are additive inverses and they drop out. So just put a check by everyone you get right. So here the m squares are additive inverses. So are the m's, and you should have 5n because you have 6n minus n. So here, and it could be in any order, we should have a minus 3xy because we have a negative 7 and a plus 4. Plus y and plus y is plus 2y minus 10x. Then this one we have to distribute. So this will be 6a minus 10b. Now this is where they'll catch you sometimes, so we want to go over it. Notice that when you distribute the negative here, you're going to get a plus 3b. And so the 6a's will cancel, and you should get a negative 7b for that one. This one, this 6x stands alone, so you just distribute the 4. And so in either order, you should have 23x minus 31y. And then with the factoring, what I did was, and I just want you to think about this at the end of the test, and we'll be getting into a lot harder examples, but you can take out the 2 here, and so you put it out front, you're left with x squared plus 3x plus 4. This one, everything has a 3x, so you take out the 3x, you're left with 5y plus 2x plus 1 to hold the place. Okay, let's go down to linear equations in one variable. Right now we're going to skip the example because that's pretty easy. Now look at number 1. The thing I want to sort of train your brain to is to look at the prompt. So this will almost become a reflex because they're not asking for x, they're asking for 6x minus 4. So we just solve for x minus 4. We'll have 6x is 3. So x is a half. But we have to look at the prompt and not get duped by that. And so that would be a minus 1. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. So the next example. Okay, let's look at this one. And like I said, we purposely set these up. So we're going to subtract a 3. So if you have 7x equals 5, how can you solve it? Well, you can make a proportion. That's the easiest way. And then just cross multiply. So 5x equals 7. So x would be 7/5, which is answer choice C. Let's try this one. The sum of n and 7 is equal to 2. Now they're not asking for n. So train your brain to look at the prompt. Minus 5 minus 4, the answer is going to be a negative 9. Okay, let's look at this one. This one we are just looking for x. So we'll distribute the 3. So that's going to give us 9x plus 6 equals x plus 8. So let's see. So we'll have 18. I forgot this.
You get 18 minus 3x is x plus 8?
Yeah, so I'm going to get 18
minus 3x.
Yeah, I must have missed that bit.
I don't know. That 9x was what you did. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, I don't know what I did either.
Just, yeah.
Okay, so we're good. So we'll subtract the 8. Add 3x to both sides. 10 is 4x. So we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. X is 10/4, which is 5/2. Okay, hopefully I'm not going too fast. So if I am, somebody say, slow down. Okay, 3 more than y is 2 less than 8. Pretty easy, right? Y is 3. Okay, let's look at this one. Couple things we could do. We could cross multiply this, which would have 5. Which would give us 5x plus. So then we'll subtract the 5x. That's what I do here.
That's right. So then
that's
2x equals 10.
So also,
math fatigue is a real thing.
Yeah, math fatigue is real. So, and that's why you have to strengthen your brain. So if you fly like an eagle above the problem, do you see, another strategy is to put the answers in, which we'll get to next time. So you can sort of fly like, and you could just eyeball this one and see if you put in a 5, it would obviously work, or you could do the math work I did. Okay, the next one. All right, so up here.
Oh, yeah, let me help you.
Okay, I'm good. I got it. Yeah. This is about but it's fuzzy. Okay, this is about the hardest question you would get on a no calculator one. In the interest of time, I'm going to do it with you. So let's see if you can follow along, or go ahead without me if you're a math whiz. So we're going to distribute this 6. And then distribute a -1. This would be on the no calculator part of the test. So we would have 6x plus 3 Well, that's just going to be 11.
Yeah, 6x plus 3 over 4. Okay. 11 and plus 6 over 6.
So then we can subtract a 3.
So you have 11 plus x over 6 on one side. You should have 6x plus 3 over 4 on the other side.
Okay, wait.
I think you started, maybe you didn't notice that.
Yeah, okay, we're good. Okay, so this will be over 4. This will be over 6. So let's simplify this. So we'll have 6x plus 3 equals 11 plus x over 6. Now we can cross multiply. And we will have 44 plus 4x equals 36x plus 18. Subtract the 4x. Maybe you're ahead of me, which is awesome. And the answer to this difficult no calculator one, when you reduce it, when we divide by 2 would be 13 over 16. And that's about the hardest you could get algebraically on a no calculator one. So does anybody have any questions to date? We did one of these in the orientation. So we're watching the chat room because I don't want to lose anybody in the dust. Okay. So if you analyze the structure of an equation, you don't need to solve for the individual variables. So let's look at this one. We have 1/5 x plus 1/4 y is 8. We want to get 4x plus 5y. So what do we have to do? We have to multiply by 20. And so then 8 times 20 would be 160. Let's look at another one. This one isn't so bad. Okay, so we have to multiply. We want to get a 3, so we have to multiply everything by 6. That would then give us 3x plus 2y, and 8 times 6 would be 48. Okay, this one, what are we doing here? We're multiplying everything by 2. 2 times 2 is just 4. So I'd like you to go to, one second, a book problem really quickly, page 612, number 33. So we're on a grid-in. These were actually real tests that were given. So
Oh, you did this one, didn't you?
oh yeah, we did.
It is exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah. Okay, we already did that. I'll give you another one in a minute. Okay, let's go on to page 12. Sorry, we already did that one. Okay. All right, so here we're trying to go from 6x to 3x, so we have to divide everything by 2, and 4k divided by 2 would be 2k. Here, what are we doing? We're dividing by 3. So 30 divided by 3 would be 10. And here, we're dividing everything by 12 to get 1/2 x over 2. So 168 divided by 12 would be 14. This one's pretty easy. We just divide everything by 10, and we will get 5.2. Okay, we might go a little over. I hope you're okay with that, because I talked a little bit too much at the beginning. So this is, you're going to get one of these on every equation. Okay, sorry, we have to, we're over here, yeah.
So multiple variables.
Yeah, so you're solving for one variable. Remember we had, and there's going to be one of these on every test. It can be easy or hard. So this one's pretty easy. We're trying to get C. Well, we know A plus B is 12. So we would have 12C is 36. So C would just be 3. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points.
Let me zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, zoom in. Okay, this one is pretty difficult. This would be in the end zone. Okay, so remember, we want to get X. We just cross this off. And like I said, there's one of these on every test. So what do we do first? Well, we can put B over 1 and cross multiply, or just multiply by X minus Y. This would be a hard one. Remember, we're trying to get the X to stand alone. So if we distribute, now we want to get all the X's on one side. So what we're going to do is subtract this and add this to the other side. This is getting you ready for the harder ones. Now, when you're at this point, you need to factor, which is why we sort of stress that. So we'll take out an x. And then divide both sides by b minus y. And so that would give us answer choice A. Again, I pushed you into the deep water in that one. So sorry about that. But again, we're trying to give everybody 100 points in math, which is very possible. Okay, let's try this next one. All right, in terms of x, we cross our line through that. We're trying to get y to stand alone. The only reason they have the y is not equal to minus 1 is because you can't divide by 0. So that's just for covering their backs. So let's multiply both sides by, let's cross multiply to simplify this. Okay, so remember what we want to do is get the y to stand alone. So we'll subtract the x. We have our eyes on the prize, which is the y. Now we're going to divide both sides by x. Now, it's not there in exactly that form, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. What we have here is 1 over x minus x over x, which is 1 over x minus 1, which is this one. One time I was teaching this, and I had a Chinese student who was just from China, and I said, well, you probably learned that with a ratio, you can just interchange these numbers. So you can put the y plus 1 in the top, and that would be 1 over x, and then you just subtract the 1. And he said, yes, Mrs. Hessler, I learned that in 2nd grade. So that was a new one for me. Okay, the last one we're going to do in this, but you'll get a lot of practice. Now look here, we want to solve it for p. So let's get this 6 on the other side first. Now, this is where we have to think of factoring. So we can factor out a p. And you'll get more chance to do these when you take your tests. But there's one of these on every test. And then to get p to stand alone, all we have to do is divide by this term. And divide this by this. Same thing. Sorry, I'm going a little over, people, but it'll be pretty painless. And so then we're going to get P is this whole thing, which in this case is answer choice C. Okay, we're just going to try to finish up this packet. Any questions, you can let me know in the chat room. Okay, now this is an example where picking numbers can really help. And then the rest of the packet is pretty easy. So look at this. X over y is k. So I have to get x plus y over x. And what I need to do is just cross off in terms of k. All right, so let's pick numbers. We'll do it both ways. Let's do it the strategy way. Okay. So let's just say that x is 6 and y is 3. And that's going to be 6 over 3. That'll be our k is 2. So we need x plus y. So that'll be 9 over 6. Which we want to get 3 halves or 1 1/2. So which answer, when I put in k is 2, will I get 1 1/2? Let's try this one. 2 minus 1 over k, which was 2. That's not going to work. Let's try this one. K is 2 2 plus 1 over 2? Yes, that's 3/2. So that's our answer. Sorry that I sort of wrote over the problem. This is our answer. Now the math teacher it would be a little more difficult to do. So we want to get, basically we have x, this is the math door. So we would have x plus y over x, which would equal x over x plus y over x, which would basically be 1 plus 1 over k, because y over x, if we inverted that, would be 1 over k. And so then that would give us k over k plus 1 over k, and we would arrive at the same answer. But if you think you might make a mistake this way, it's a surefire way to pick examples. Any questions on that? I'm asking the chat room because that was a little wild. We okay?
And they can always review it too.
Yeah, you can always go back and look at the.
We'll leave them up.
We leave all these up. Okay, inequalities are pretty simple. The rest of the packet we're just going to buzz through. So we're going to divide this by 40. So we'll have x is larger than a negative 0.75. This is an open, not a closed circle, because it's not including it. So we want the open circle, which would be A. Okay, the next one.
You're over here.
See, we only have 2 more pages, so I'm sorry that we went a little over.
Right there.
Okay, x is 2, so we put in 2. Y plus 8 is less than 12. Y is less than 4. Why do we put this in? Because it's a grid and sometimes multiple answers are accepted. So we could put a 3, a 2, or a 1 in here. Not all 3. You could put a 3 if you'd like, right?
Oh, you could even, I guess, do decimals. They don't specify.
Yeah, but
sometimes that's, yeah. Right.
Okay, let's try this one. So if we have an inequality, remember if we divide by a negative, I'm just reviewing because you're basically doing 6 years of all your math. Minus 3p. So when I divide by a negative, I have to flip the sign. Let's see here.
Do you have negative 3p is greater than negative 6?
That's what I messed up.
Oh.
Sorry, guys. So I subtract the 18.
There's only one more page. I'm almost done.
Greater than a minus 6, so we divide by minus 3. So I do have to flip the sign. P is less than 2, which is answer choice C. So this one, probably make it, multiply both sides by 2. Subtract the 15. Have to flip the sign because I'm dividing by a negative. So x will be greater than.
That 9 should be positive, I think. Negative 3x is less than positive 9. Right?
Yeah. And so the answer is going to be A. Okay, so for this one, another strategy we're going to put in your toolbox is to use the answer choices. So let's look at this one. In which of the following intervals does every value of x satisfy the inequality above? Okay, so we're going to pick numbers here. Well, we know that x cannot be negative because a negative number is never going to be greater than a positive number. So these negatives are out. So let's pick a number here for x. Let's say x is a third. So is 2 divided by a third greater than 3? Well, just as a review, when you divide by a fraction, you flip it and multiply. Is 6 greater than 3? Yes. And so our answer for this one will be C. Last page. Woo! In case they, thank you. I'm sorry I went a couple minutes over. When you have 3 parts, if you've ever seen this before, in the example here, it's totally legal to solve it by doing everything to all 3. So let's try this one. Okay, so in this example, I'm just going to subtract 6 from every part of the inequality. Minus 10. And now I have to divide by a minus 2. And that'll mean I have to flip the sign. And this will actually be 21/8. So our answer could be 3 or 4. We'll put in a 4. Okay, so for a finale, I'm gonna why do we have this question here? This isn't in their
That's
packet.
not on mine either.
I don't know why.
Just cross it off.
Okay, so can you try this one as our finale and put the answer in the chat room? So like I said, we strategically pick these problems so that there's nothing on the test you haven't seen or with us. So we're trying to get x by itself. So if you could just put your answer in the chat room. Great. Okay, so
Did you flip a sign or something?
this should be a 6. Sorry. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
I might have gotten you guys
You
messed
just
up.
loaded them all to the wrong answer.
I got you to
I
the
love
wrong
it.
answer.
Oh, I
I'm
love
sorry.
it.
I'm
No, I
sorry.
love
I'm
it. I
sorry.
love it. It's hilarious.
So look, so we'll have 7. I goofed you up, people. It's actually B. But that was my bad.
Curveball.
Math fatigue.
Math
Okay.
fatigue is real.
Yes. And so this should be a -6, but I led you wrong. Does everybody see why it's B? Okay, so hopefully you've learned a lot today, and we will continue next time. Sorry about that last slip up. And so everybody sees why it's B. I misled you with this part here. And we'll see you next Sunday at 2 o'clock. And you can watch any of this again if you'd like. It'll be on our website. Send me an email if you have any concerns.
We're good.
And so we're signing off, and you can just say bye. And we'll see you next Sunday at 2 o'clock.
Smart group.
It's a very smart group. I misled them. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Maddie.
Thank you all. See you next time.